much for this kind introductory words. Prime Minister, ministers, European coordinators, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. I'm very honored to open the third Rail Baltica Forum today, along with Prime Minister Skvernelis. And I would like to thank our Lithuanian hosts for their hospitality and the joint venture RB Rail for organizing this event in Vilnius, where spring is in full swing. It's equally a great joy to see you all gathered here today and to spot so many familiar faces from the railway community among you this morning. The event today is definitely most timely, as it gives us an opportunity to take a snapshot of where we are now with the project implementation and look at the challenges as well as the next steps ahead of us. I also believe that this year is a crucial year for Rail Baltica project, and it is essential to make significant progress and take decisive steps to bring this project forward. And the year has so far started pretty well. I'm extremely pleased that the Finnish government has decided to join RB Rail, which adds a significant northern dimension to this project. It is not just 3 Baltic States anymore, as we will now have the full commitment and participation of Finland as well. Secondly, I would like to take this opportunity to very warmly welcome Timo Riihimäki, the new CEO of RB Rail joint venture, who was appointed in February. Timo, you have a challenging job ahead of you, but let me assure you that working on this project will also be most rewarding exercise and unique challenge one can have in the railway sector. It will not be an easy job, but you are very lucky, as a highly motivated and dedicated team will be there to support you. I wish you all the best for your new tasks, and I assure you that I personally and the European Commission are very much looking forward to pragmatic and successful cooperation with you. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank your predecessor, Paiva Rubeza, for all the work that she did in this very challenging position. As you well know, Rail Baltica is the largest pan-Baltic infrastructure project ever. It's also a key project for Europe, being among the flagship projects of the Connecting Europe facility. The European Commission is fully committed to this project, and until now, our involvement has been both intense and proactive. I assure you, it will continue in the same manner also in the future. This project fulfills many goals of the European infrastructure and mobility policy, connecting eastern and western parts of the European Union, peripheral regions to the center, creating corridors, crossing and connecting many member states, moving freight from road to rail, and supporting sustainable transport corridors, just to name a few. It also promotes the new military mobility concept, where Rail Baltica is adding a key infrastructure connection to the security dimension of the European Union. More concretely, let me just remind you about some benefits that this project will bring to the economy and also to the societies of this Baltic Sea region. Rail Baltica is going to connect the Baltic capitals in a way that they have never been connected in their history. Getting from Tallinn to Riga and from Riga to Vilnius in less than 2 hours means more commuting between the capitals and more people-to-people contacts, as well as tourism. Passengers will save more than 5 million hours each year. And of course, add to that also the connections to Helsinki, Warsaw, and so on. It is a kind of a totally new cluster which is in the making. Already now, we can see that there is a great interest among the public to the operational plan as well as indicative travel times, which shows that people are looking forward to Rail Baltica trains connecting Finland, the Baltic States and Poland in regular intervals. No doubt, this rail connection will open up new opportunities that bring positive, disruptive effects on the businesses in this area, and the whole region will definitely become more intertwined. Today, Via Baltica, which connects the Baltic countries by road, experiences more and more congestion day by day. Moving people and freight to the rails would be an important step towards safer, more sustainable and less congested connection. Modal shift and comfortable fast trains would incentivize people not to drive hours to get to their destinations, thereby contributing to a safer road corridor from Tallinn to Warsaw. This would improve road safety and limit the number of accidents, meaning that thanks to Rail Baltica corridor, about 400 lives could be saved over the period of 2026-2055. Every life counts. We should not forget either that Rail Baltica brings environmental benefits through potential modal shift from road to rail, and through that cutting the CO2 emissions and the environmental footprint of the transport sector. This modal shift would, according to the estimates, bring air pollution reduction benefits over 6 billion euros over the period up to 2055. The Rail Baltica Business Network has studied, and I also want to thank the Business Network for their very, very proactive engagement. They have studied the expectations of the domestic business sectors towards Rail Baltica over the past 2 years and came to interesting results that can feed into the business plan of the line. These results show that mature businesses require railway productivity improvements, and dynamic small to medium enterprises expect high service quality, including reliable on-time deliveries, integrated logistical services and cost level, which would rival competing modes of transport. Most of all, companies expect Rail Baltica to set up a new service standard in the railway sector and its management practices, optimize logistics, flow control, and establish an effective link with the Central European countries. As Rail Baltica is a long-term project, it also takes into account the potential trends of the global transport policy. It's clear that eventually, also due to global warming, the Arctic shipping route will become more and more navigable. Rail Baltica and its continuation on the Finnish territory would be there to benefit from that. Today already, more and more trains are running between Europe and Asia, supported by the development of the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as by better throughput of the Russian railway networks. This means that there are more than one entry point to the EU and Europe, as Asian operators are keen to choose those entry points that make it possible to shift smoothly to the 1435mm tracks. Taking advantage of these opportunities requires out-of-the-box thinking. Exchanges with stakeholders clearly show that, for example, Finnish industry, particularly pulp and paper industry, has a keen interest in developing land-based connection to the Finnish export markets in Central and Southeast Europe and beyond. Finnish companies are also keen to transport more time-sensitive products by rail to their factories and customers in Central and Eastern Europe and also beyond the EU borders. Dear friends, the EU's transport policy is now focused much more towards the internalization of the external costs, and sustainability becomes even more of a decisive factor. Prioritizing more environmentally friendly transport modes will be the guiding principle of EU transport policy for the next decades to come, when delivering also the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. Ever since the Baltic States and Poland became the EU member states, which was almost 15 years ago exactly, the Commission has been encouraging them to pursue a cross-border integration of the EU transport area. We are fully aware that the cross-border multi-country projects are also challenging. So the Commission continues to facilitate them by finding the best balance between all actors. In this context, I would like to highlight that it is essential to understand that Rail Baltica relies fully on common rules and agreements, and it is one single entity. There are no three separate entities. There is one single entity. It has to be one size fits all, even though we are fully aware that we are dealing with the different member states. It is just that the coherence and delivery of the project is exclusively dependent on the full commitment to this concept. In October 2018, the Commission adopted the implementing decision on Rail Baltica, laying down the common timeline for the implementation as well as governance principles across the 5 member states: Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. This decision bases itself on the intergovernmental agreement ratified by the 3 parliaments of the Baltic States in 2017. Until now, there has been a clear and univocal expression of political support in all 5 member states, and also thank you very much for that, Prime Minister Skvernelis. And this support is crucial for the successful implementation of the project, but equally for the financing decisions which are proposed by the European Commission. Against that background, it has been a very important step that Poland has taken the decision to raise the speed on the Rail Baltica line. It is a concrete commitment to the project and a clear sign of trust gained in the project's implementation in the Baltic states. We will continue to work with Poland to align the design criteria and to align the timing of the project. We want to be sure that we have a coherent approach all the way from Tallinn to Warsaw. Equally, I'm very delighted that Finland has accepted the official invitation from the Baltic ministers and create the structure that will become one of the shareholders of the JV Rail Baltica Rail. Thus, the discussion on practical arrangements can now proceed, and I have no doubt that it will be a speedy process. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the positive developments and subsequent expression of political support, we are nevertheless facing challenges. Of course we are. That I would also like to bring to your attention today, at least some of them. First, we have to address the critical issue of delays. We know very well that the Rail Baltica implementation has a highly challenging timeline, right? As with all major greenfield infrastructure projects, the preparatory activities tend to take more time than initially anticipated. Hence, the time has come for the implementation to proceed at full speed in relation to the activities where positive financing decisions have already been taken. We cannot afford to lose any more time in discussions that go over and over and don't take this project forward. Instead, the ongoing design phase should help us in identifying possible ways to accelerate the project implementation. It will be possible to open operations on the Rail Baltica line in 2026, as anticipated, but only if we all work together and the necessary financing is in place when needed. Let me also remind the partners that it is essential that all necessary changes in the legislation are made without delays. And it's equally important to support cooperation between the 5 member states in order to deliver the project within the agreed timeline. Very much related to that is my second point on the EU financial support to the Rail Baltica project. So far, 1.6 billion euros have been allocated from the Connecting Europe facility to the realization of Rail Baltica project in the Baltic States and Poland for a total investment that is today around 2 billion euros. More financing could still be allocated under this financial period, despite the fact that we have now used fully the CEF envelope, since further funding could potentially become available from already committed resources, but not utilized by other projects. The Rail Baltica project, due to its importance for Europe, could be eligible for these reflows, but only if the project implementation and use of allocated funds is within the planned timetable. Otherwise, we just cannot justify the allocation of additional resources. At the same time, the additional funding could help to bridge the funding gap that would otherwise remain under the next EU long-term budget. Concerning the next EU long-term budget 21-27, although final amounts are not yet agreed, and we of course very much also count on your support in that, we can be rather satisfied with the result of the negotiations so far. Based on the ambitious Commission proposal, the Council and the European Parliament reached a partial agreement in March on the framework and modalities of the next Connecting Europe facility for the years 2021-27. This partial agreement opens the possibility for the continuation of the co-funding rate for the Rail Baltica project of 85%, with a possible top-up of another 5% for actions which are implemented through the joint venture. The Parliament is going to have the plenary vote on this agreement, I think on the 17th of April. I think this is the latest. But the agreement in the Transport Committee with the Council is in place. Military mobility was also included as a new element of the Connecting Europe facility, allowing us to finance dual-use projects, as Rail Baltica is an obvious example of project where civilian as well as defense interests come together. However, the overall budgetary envelopes and the level of competition among the cohesion countries will be determined through high-level political negotiations at a later stage. The current Commission's budgetary proposals would allow a reasonable amount to be available to Rail Baltica also to compete for that. I also use the opportunity to invite all member states present today, as well as the industry representatives, to support us in achieving an ambitious future budget for the Connecting Europe facility, and in particular for its transport and mobility component. All your efforts are also very important in that. My third and last point of the challenges relates to the future management of this infrastructure. An infrastructure manager study by an independent consultant for Rail Baltica was just completed and will be presented later today. It is of utmost importance that all countries respect the result of the study, setting out how the tasks of the infrastructure management should be structured in the Baltic States. The clear recommendations are that for achieving the highest level of efficiency and coherence, the railway traffic management and tracks access fees implementation should be managed centrally. An attractive railway track for carriers should be a common interest of the three Baltic states. So let me once again stress what I have said earlier. Either there is one coherent Rail Baltica, or we have a fragmented, potentially non-functional setup. In fact, it is here that the national interests should actually be the same as the project interests. And I invite all parties to take a long-term view of the benefits of the business case by doing things jointly, rather than insisting on business-as-usual model. In simple terms, three infrastructure managers will not achieve the same synergies and results compared to an integrated structure. It would result in more fragmentation, and that is not desirable. Ladies and gentlemen, despite of all these challenges, I remain optimistic and also positive. But the future of this project is in the hands of its owners. And we really hope that you will do the utmost now to avoid problems and find solutions. We have now, today and tomorrow, two very interesting days ahead of us. And I'm sure that the upcoming discussions will be both useful but also inspiring. I wish this forum a success. Let's work closely together to make this project a positive reality, and let's live up to the historic opportunity with great potential that is in front of us. Thank you once again for inviting me, and thank you for your kind assistance. Prime Minister, thank you also for your presence. Thank you.